It's been a very eventful offseason for the Pittsburgh Penguins as Kyle Dubas has left his mark on the team. Hunter Hodies is here to discuss that, what moves may be next, and how things have changed for the Penguins since the end of last season. All that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. You can also now hear us on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On NHL. The Pittsburgh Penguins have had one of the most eventful off seasons of any team in the National Hockey League. So we bring in the host of Locked On Penguins, Hunter Hodies, to talk about it. And Hunter, obviously the big move a couple of weeks ago with the Erik Karlsson deal. How has that deal energized the organization and the fan base? And what are the changes you've seen since that trade went down?
I think it's energized everyone within the city of Pittsburgh. I think this is something that the organization badly needed. You needed to have a new star come in here to just give this fan base a jolt. I mean, I think the team has been a little bit stale these past few years. They haven't really been that fun to watch. And when you think of Penguins hockey, you think of fun, a lot of offense, a lot of scoring. It was basically the same thing. And just superstar players making superstar plays. You go back to the 90s, you continue it with this era. That's what you think of when you think of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And now you add Erik Karlsson into the fold, who just had over 100 points this past season. You have him with Chris Letang. You solved some of your offensive issues from last year. I know you don't solve them from the bottom six-wise, but overall, you'll get more goals and more production off of your back end, and you'll get potentially more goals from your forwards. It can only mean good things for the Penguins. And the best part is, this was a classic, we'll give you all our bad players for your one good player type trade, and Kyle Dubas was able to pull it off really nicely. Sure, they didn't get the Sharks to retain a lot. I mean, if I were Mike Grier, I would have wanted to retain more because you would have gotten more in return, but they didn't want to do that because the ownership made that decision. But this is a very good trade for them. I'm a big fan of it, and I think it improves the defense heading into the year, and I also think it gives them more offense overall.
How do you think they will break down the power play as far as Letang and Karlsson are concerned? I mean, they can't both quarterback the power play at the same time.
No, I've discussed this with Pat, who's the new co-host of the show, Patrick Damp. You can follow him on Twitter at synonym for wet. We've discussed this a lot over the last couple of weeks. Personally, for me, I would have Erik Karlsson at the top. I would put Chris Letang at the Phil Kessel position because he can be a shot first player and a pass first player. That's something that I think the Penguins have really been lacking since Kessel left, because he was such a threat at both areas in that spot on the left half wall. He could shoot the puck obviously really well with his release, but he was also a very underrated passer on the power play. And I don't think the Penguins have truly replaced that since he was traded. You can put Jake Guentzel in front of the net, have Evgeny Malkin at the right half wall, and then we all know how good Sidney Crosby is below the dots or just behind the net. He's unreal with his vision there. You can also split Karlsson and Letang up if you want. You can have Karlsson quarterback the top unit, Letang quarterback the second unit. You can also flip-flop them because Letang's power play numbers are still pretty good. I think Erik Karlsson is a better power play quarterback at this point in his career, but I still don't mind Letang being up there. But with Karlsson running it, you'll have a guy who's a one-man wrecking crew with zone entries. You're not going to hopefully see that stupid drop pass that they do very often in just coming out of the defensive zone when clears are made. They just love to drop the puck back and then go backwards to go forwards, and then it's just a mess because it allows the opposition to set up their unit, and it's a mess. I hope Todd Reirden gets away from that, but that's the structure that I would do for the power play this upcoming season. And I'll say this too, there's no excuses for Todd Reirden with this unit now. It was kind of average, a little above average, but I would say mostly average this past season. It needs to be a lot better than that with the talent that they have at their disposal.
Now, there are rumors going around that the Penguins are not finished, that they may be interested in adding Tomas Tatar to the lineup. What have you heard? Where are we at this point? And what would it cost them if they were going to make that move?
Well, Gil, I don't have any really big insider information. I don't have that luxury of being Elliot Friedman over here or some of the other full-time beat reporters. But I mean, I do think they have interest in him. He's a good complementary middle six forward, which this team, I think, desperately needs. You look at who they added over the offseason. Noel Acciari, very good defensive-minded player. I think he's going to be like that Brandon Tanev, like wrecking ball, who can also contribute a little bit offensively. Matt Nieto, defensive forward. Lars Eller, third or fourth line center. I think he's better as a fourth line center, in my opinion. He's also very good defensively. Well, when you look at that bottom six as a whole, outside of those guys, you have Jeff Carter, you have Drew O'Connor, who they re-signed. Alex Nylander's an option. Andreas Janssen, Vinny Hinostroza. There's not really a big middle six winger in there that's going to put the fear of God into you to score 15, 17 goals. Tomas Tatar can do that. He's a 20-goal, 30-assist guy. He's good for 50 points? That's how good he was this past season. If you can add him on a cheap deal, whether it's 1 year, whether it's 2 years, and you can figure out the cap heading into the season by sending some guys on waivers, maybe sending some guys down to Wilkes-Barre, making a trade, I think it would be worth it because you would bring someone in who can complement the bottom six and actually be an offensive threat down there. Because that's, I think, the big thing that the Penguins are missing heading into the season is a good middle six winger. He can also play in the top six when injuries occur. They're already going to be without Jake Gensel for at least the first 5 or 6 games of the year. He can play up there next to Crosby or Malkin. It will just be a really good ad for the Penguins, and we'll be curious to see if Kyle Dubas can make it work, because I'm sure he's probably having all sorts of conversations about the cap because they're capped out and all this other stuff. But I would love to see it happen because I think of the free agents left, he's by far the best option.
Yeah, he is certainly the best available right now, and especially when you take into consideration the Penguins' needs. Talk to me about Dubas. I mean, he has really put his stamp on this team in a very short amount of time.
This is his team, and you've seen the players that he's moved out, Gil. A lot of Ron Hextall moves that he made the last couple of years. Jeff Petrie's gone. Mikhail Gramlin, who they just acquired, is gone. You have Jan Ruda, who they signed. He's gone. Casey DeSmith, who he was there during the Jim Rutherford era, but still when Ron Hextall came in, he stuck with him. He's gone. He brought in his own guys, and I think the team right now is better heading into the season than it was at the end of this past season. I think the offseason so far, I mean, it's funny. After free agent frenzy, I kind of gave him a B- C+. I'm like, he can't be done yet, right? And sure enough, he wasn't, and he still may not be done. I have it at about an A-, B+ right now. If he can get Tomas Tatar, I'll probably upgrade that to an A or A+, because adding all that talent and just making the bottom six better, adding another game breaker for the defense with limited assets and limited cap space, that's a job well done. And you can see the Penguins are going for it. They're not satisfied. I think he's really energized the fan base, just energized the whole city. And it's nice to have someone who actually knows what they're doing at this position of being the GM and president of hockey operations. You're not just having someone come in here who tries to acquire guys who are good 3 to 4 years ago or something like that. It looks like he has a coherent plan. I may not have agreed with the bottom six plan after free agency, but if he can get Tatar, I'll have come around a little bit on it. That said, I understand what the plan is there with how they don't want to be scored on a lot, and they also don't want, they want the top six to be able to do all the production, but they just want the bottom six to kind of play low event hockey. I get it. It's not what I would do, but at least there's a plan there, and I think it could be a little bit better if they are able to get Tatar. But I've been really impressed with him, and I'm curious to see what else he does next, because I don't think he's done, if not August or September, but at the trade deadline, because I think he can make a move there too.
All right. Well, exciting times in Pittsburgh. Hunter, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, or X, I guess is what we're calling it now, at Hunter Hodies. The show's Twitter is at @LO_Penguins. You can follow the new co-host of the show, Patrick Damp, at Synonym for Wet. He joined the show about a few weeks ago. It's been really nice having him on. And yeah, that's where you can find the show. And it's all on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff.
All right. Hunter, thanks so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Today's episode is brought to you by AG1, a product I literally use every day. I started taking AG1 because I wanted a supplement that didn't require me to take a whole bunch of different pills and would meet all of my nutritional needs. I usually have AG1 in the morning before starting my day, and it gives me energy and makes me feel better before I even begin to work. Look, AG1 gives you 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. And it supports your gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, aging, all these things. So if you are looking for a comprehensive solution to what you need from your supplemental routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1/NHL network. That's drinkag1/NHL network. Check it out.